My family cut me off because I refused to finance my brother. Later they regretted it. I knew I'd been cut out of the family before I even opened the door. But I went home for Thanksgiving anyway. The invitation had come 2 weeks before, a white envelope, hand-addressed by my mother, Lois. Inside, one line in her delicate script. Thanksgiving dinner. 2 p.m. Your father expects you to be on time. No love, Mom. No greeting. Just instructions. And that was the thing. Even after everything, they still believed I would come. That I'd slip back into my role like an old coat. Quiet, reliable Nathan. The one who understood sacrifice. The one who never said no. But I had said no. 3 months earlier, my brother Dorian had asked me for nearly $500,000. His fourth business venture had collapsed, another pile of buzzwords and investor money set ablaze. I owned a small but thriving community workshop and bookstore in Cedar Hollow, Vermont. Nothing flashy, just honest work. He needed me to sell it. It's just temporary, he'd said. You sell now, I get the capital, and when the Series B round closes, I buy it back for you plus interest. It was always interest with Dorian. Always promises with no weight behind them. I refused. And for the first time in my life, I didn't explain why. I just said, no. That same night, my parents called. A conference call, too formal to feel real. My father, Earl, did most of the talking. You know what family means to us, he said. We take care of each other. Dorian has ideas that could change things. Big things. You have something that could help. Why wouldn't you? My mother chimed in, her voice calm and clipped. It's just a store, Nathan. A building full of books. It's not your future. Your brother is. When I held my silence, Earl continued. You need to understand this clearly. What you do now will determine your place in this family. If you can't support your brother when it matters most, we can't support you later. Not in the will. Not in any way. It was the most direct they'd ever been. The call ended with one sentence that landed like a door slamming shut. You've made your choice, son. 2 weeks passed. I expected anger. Maybe regret. But instead came the invitation. I stared at that card for a long time before deciding to go. Not to beg. Not to argue. I was going because it was time they saw what I had become. Not the obedient shadow in their house, but the man who had built something solid without them. As I drove up the long gravel path to their farmhouse, the world outside blurred. Trees stripped of their leaves. Fields gone brittle under frost. Everything seemed paused. Waiting. I parked beside my brother's car, a sleek black coupe, recently leased, always polished. Style with no substance. Just like him. The front porch looked exactly as it had every fall, pumpkins at the corners, a wreath of dried berries on the door, the railings painted for show. But what once felt like warmth now seemed like stage dressing. I climbed the steps and knocked once, out of formality. Then I opened the door. My parents were waiting in the foyer. Earl in his navy blazer, his stance rigid. Lois in a cream sweater, pearls at her neck, hands folded as if in prayer. Dorian was behind them, his smile too wide, like someone playing a part he hadn't rehearsed. My father spoke first. We need to say something before the others arrive. I nodded, kept my coat on. Lois stepped forward. Your presence today doesn't change anything, Nathan. We appreciate that you came, but you've made your position clear. Earl added, we're finalizing the transfer. The trust, the house, the investments, all to Dorian. We're rewriting the will. No apology. No hesitation. Just law spoken like gospel. Then, the blow. You're no longer part of our future, Nathan. And you'll receive nothing when we're gone. They stood there, expecting me to fight. Or break. But I just looked at them. I had known this was coming. They didn't know that I'd already been working with a lawyer, Gabriel Shore, a quiet man who didn't ask why I came to him with folders of bank statements and screenshots. He just said, start from the beginning. Gabriel had taught me how to document things properly. How to ask the right questions. How to protect what I'd built. They didn't know I had recordings. Emails. Voice messages. Signed documents from Dorian that contradicted each other. Whispers on investor forums about unpaid returns and disappearing founders. And they certainly didn't know about the conversation I'd recorded 2 weeks ago, when Lois had whispered to Earl over tea. We have to keep Nathan quiet. Until this is done. He's smart enough to see what Dorian's hiding. That recording was saved on my phone. Titled simply, T, 11:46 a.m. I looked at them now, these people who used to be my entire world, and I realized how small they suddenly seemed. This wasn't a family meeting. It was a reckoning. And I had come prepared. After that conversation in the foyer, they didn't ask me to stay. They didn't have to. I walked past them and into the house anyway. The dining room was already set, long table, polished silver, 3 empty chairs waiting for guests who weren't family. Dorian hovered, watching me like I might make a scene. I didn't. I sat quietly in the corner of the living room. I watched the clock. I studied the paintings on the walls. I let the silence stretch. Lois moved mechanically, her steps precise, refilling glasses that hadn't been touched. Merton sat stiffly in his chair, one hand clenched on his knee. Dorian tried to make small talk. "You know, Nate," he said, pulling up a stool across from me, "this didn't have to be so cold. You could have just trusted me." I looked him straight in the eye. "I trusted you 3 times, Dorian. You burned through every dollar and blamed the people who believed in you. I'm not making it for." He smirked, but it faltered. "You think this is justice? Ratting out your own blood?" "This isn't about justice," I said. "It's about facts. And you made your choices long before I made mine." The doorbell rang. Guests began arriving. I stood. Quietly slipped on my coat. As I walked toward the door, Earl's voice followed me. "You walk out that door, Nathan, and you're done. Don't come crawling back when this blows over." I turned. I'm not the one who'll need to crawl. And I left. Back at my apartment above the store, I sat down at my desk and opened the folder Gabriel had labeled Protective Evidentiary Package. Inside, a notarized copy of my business valuation. Screenshots of texts from Dorian offering quiet equity swaps in exchange for silence. A transcript of the tea conversation. Records from a man named Andrew Vega, who had emailed me 3 weeks ago after I posted anonymously on a private business forum. Andrew had invested $100,000 into Dorian's previous venture. He'd never seen a cent returned. When he tried to get updates, he was ghosted. "I've been waiting for someone else to come forward," Andrew had written. I didn't want to be the first. "I don't care about the money anymore, I care about the lie." Gabriel reviewed everything I gave him and filed the preliminary report with the Vermont Office of Financial Regulation. We didn't use Dorian's name publicly at first. The report listed the entity Seabound Ventures LLC and the documented inconsistencies in fundraising and payout promises. 2 weeks later, I was contacted by a state investigator. They asked for a formal statement. I gave one. So did Andrew. From that point, I stepped back. Not from the fight, but from the emotion. I let the evidence speak. Meanwhile, at home, silence grew. Lois stopped sending messages. No holiday cards. No reminders. But I began hearing from others. An old family friend, Martha Flinch, who had known me since I was a boy, came into the store and set a brown envelope on the counter. "I don't want to get involved," she said, "but I overheard something at church. Just thought you should have this." Inside were notes from a fundraising dinner Dorian had hosted, claiming that he had secured a family inheritance as leverage for future liquidity. In other words, he was selling my parents' assets to impress investors before the will was even finalized. I sent a copy to Gabriel. "That's misrepresentation," he said. "It's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal if the funds weren't truly allocated." I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. For years, I'd let my parents tell me who I was. The patient one. The one who waited. The one who kept things together while Dorian reached. But now, I wasn't waiting anymore. On a snowy Tuesday morning, I got a call from the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation. The voice on the line was calm but clear. "We've initiated a formal investigation into Mr. Dorian Brixton and his affiliated entities. Your documentation was central to that decision." I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just said, "Thank you." Later that day, I walked into the store, made a fresh pot of coffee, and opened the blinds. Light streamed in through the frost. The town was still quiet. Most people hadn't heard anything yet. But I knew it wouldn't stay that way. Secrets rot in silence. And I was done being quiet. It didn't take long. 2 weeks after the investigation was launched, a small article appeared in the local business journal. State opens inquiry into local tech entrepreneur over fundraising irregularities. No names. No photos. Just dates and an LLC, Seabound Ventures. But in a town like ours, that was enough. By Friday, 3 customers asked me quietly, "Is that your brother?" I didn't answer. Not directly. But I didn't deny it either. People talk. And when they talk, they choose sides. Some, like Mrs. Darnell from the hardware store, stopped coming in. Others, regulars, quiet readers, neighbors I'd shared coffee with, started staying longer. Buying more. Saying less, but with warmer eyes. There's a look people give when they realize the one they underestimated was the one telling the truth all along. That weekend, I saw Earl in town. He was standing at the post office, sorting through letters. He glanced up, saw me, then looked down again. We hadn't spoken since Thanksgiving. I didn't expect to see him. He rarely left the property unless it was for something he couldn't delegate. I nodded once. He didn't respond. But I saw his grip tighten on the mail. That night, I got a voicemail. Lois. Her voice was composed, but brittle. "Nathan, this has gone too far. The article Dorian is being harassed. This isn't how we resolve things in this family. You've embarrassed us. Call me." I didn't call back. Instead, I forwarded the message to Gabriel, who logged it and added it to our archive. He'd already prepared a timeline for the investigators, noting every attempt by my parents to discourage me from reporting the truth. "It may not lead to charges," he said, "but it establishes intent. A pattern of obstruction. That's valuable." The following week, the second article dropped. This time, names were used. Dorian Brixton faces scrutiny over misrepresented investments. Multiple former investors and a family business owner have confirmed that Dorian Brixton solicited funds under false pretenses, citing non-existent contracts and projected assets from his parents' estate as collateral. And below that, "I just wanted the truth," says Nathan Brixton, owner of the paper foundry in Cedar Hollow. I hadn't asked to be quoted. But I didn't object either. That sentence, 7 words, spread farther than I expected. It became a headline in itself. "Just wanted the truth, a brother's Stan Sparks reckoning." People started reaching out. A woman named Lydia Messner, who had worked with Dorian briefly, emailed me to share her story. She'd been pressured into fudging numbers for a pitch deck and later fired when she questioned the ethics. A retired teacher, Mr. Hargrave, said Dorian had spoken to his investment group and collected $25,000 from several members before vanishing. They were tired of silence. So was I. I spoke to the paper again. This time, on record. I told them everything that had led to the split in the family. The pressure. The threats. The decision to walk away. I didn't mention the inheritance. I didn't need to. That wasn't what this was about anymore. It was about a pattern. A system. And how it ends. 3 days later, I received a letter. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, typed. "You've ruined your brother's life. Hope it was worth it." No signature. I showed it to Gabriel. He asked if I wanted to report it. I declined. Let the cowards stay in the shadows. I was done hiding. Lois emailed me again after that. "You don't understand what you've done, Nathan. This isn't just business, it's blood. You've humiliated this family. Dorian can't even go out without being watched." She attached a photo of Dorian at the gas station, his head down, paparazzi style. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I felt guilt, but because I realized, for the first time, that he looked exactly like what he was. A man running out of masks. The town's mood had changed. In the shop, customers asked fewer questions but lingered more. There was a weight to their words, a kind of unspoken solidarity. And every now and then, someone would say it aloud. "You did the right thing." It didn't feel like victory. But it felt like truth. And truth, I was learning, was the only thing that outlives silence. In late February, the official charges were announced. 3 counts of fraudulent misrepresentation. 2 counts of securities misconduct. 1 count of wire fraud. The local news posted a statement from the Attorney General's office. "Our office is pursuing charges against Dorian Brixton following evidence of intentional deception in fundraising and investment activities across multiple platforms and entities. This includes falsified assets and leveraged promises tied to personal estate holdings." The estate was their word for my parents' finances. What they didn't say, but what everyone knew, was that Dorian had used our family name like a blank check. For years. The day after the charges dropped, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just one line. "I hope they see it now." I didn't reply. But I knew who it was from. Lydia. The one person who had been inside the machine with Dorian and walked away with her conscience intact. Gabriel and I met in his office the next afternoon. He handed me a new folder. Inside were disclosures from the court documents. I skimmed through pages of financial statements, false invoices, and emails that had been submitted as evidence. I paused on one line in particular. It was from Dorian to a would-be investor, 2 months before Thanksgiving. "The trust is guaranteed. I've confirmed it with the family. It's all going to me after year's end." Gabriel pointed to it. "This is the line that turned the tide." I leaned back. He really believed it. Gabriel nodded. He was so confident, he started spending before anything was written in ink. And that was the crack. The moment where ambition blurred into delusion. Then came the part one hadn't expected. "Have you heard of the Yule box?" Gabriel asked. I hadn't. It turned out to be a private family safety deposit box, originally set up by my grandfather. Inside were documents that predated even my father's involvement in the family finances. As part of discovery, the investigators had accessed the contents. Gabriel passed me a photocopy of one letter. It was dated July 1988. And it changed everything. In the letter, my grandfather wrote to a lawyer, naming my mother's first son by another man as the reason he wanted to set up the estate differently. He said, "Earl has agreed to raise the child as his own, but we all know Dorian is not his by blood. This is a private matter, but it requires discretion and a formal trust arrangement to avoid future confusion." I stared at the letter. The words didn't register fully at first. Then they did. Dorian wasn't Earl's biological son. He never was. And somehow, I'd never known. I thought back to every moment where my father had gone silent, every time he had let Lois lead. Every time he'd deferred to Dorian, even when it didn't make sense. Not love. Not favoritism. Guilt. A lifelong performance to maintain a fiction. A lie built on top of more lies. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Because what had looked like betrayal now looked like a survival strategy. A family terrified of one secret becoming public. A secret they'd buried me under. Gabriel watched me process it. "I debated showing you this," he said. "It doesn't change the legal side. But it explains some of the decisions." I nodded slowly. "It doesn't excuse them," I said. "But it makes them make sense." In early March, Dorian accepted a plea deal. 5 years probation. 2 years of supervised financial oversight. Partial restitution. No jail time. The investors were split, some satisfied, some furious. But the public damage was done. His companies dissolved. His name, once tossed around in startup circles, became a cautionary tale. My parents? They didn't speak to the press. But one day, I found an envelope on the doorstep of the shop. No return name. But I knew the handwriting. Inside. "We were trying to protect him. We never knew how much it cost you. We're sorry." No signature. Just that. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to write back. They had made their peace with the truth. Now it was my turn. By the time spring arrived, the headlines had moved on. New elections. New controversies. New names in bold font. But mine stayed quiet. And for the first time in my life, I was grateful for silence. The Paper Foundry, the little bookstore and maker space I had built from the ground up, was thriving. In March, we hosted a local poetry night. 30 people showed up, most of them new faces. The kind of crowd that once would have come to our home for holiday dinners. Only now, they came for stories that didn't require pretending. Gabriel dropped by that week. He brought a fresh binder labeled Final Notes, Brixton Case. He handed it to me with a small smile. "No loose ends," he said. "Unless you want to pursue civil action for emotional distress." I shook my head. "I don't want more money," I said. "I just want my life back." And I meant it. Because what I'd built, what I still had, wasn't built on promises or performance. It was real. It was mine. On the first warm Saturday of April, I hosted dinner in the workshop's back room. We cleared out the wood tables and brought in mismatched chairs. Lydia came early and helped arrange flowers. Andrew brought wine. Even Gabriel stayed for once, quietly sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. There were 10 of us, some friends, some former strangers now bonded by shared clarity. And as we passed dishes hand to hand, I realized something. This was the family I had chosen. Not because of obligation. Not because of shared blood. But because they saw me. And stayed. After dinner, I stepped outside and leaned against the railing. The wind carried the faint scent of wild grass and pine. I looked up. The stars were sharp. Clear. For so long, I had tried to be what my parents needed: loyal, quiet, dependable. And they had chosen illusion over truth. But now, I had told my truth. Fully. Without apology. And what I gained in return wasn't wealth or validation. It was peace. The next morning, I opened the store early. The sunlight streamed through the windows. I made 2 cups of coffee and sat one on the counter just in case anyone walked in early. And then I wrote a letter I never planned to send. Dear Dorian, I hope someday you understand that this wasn't about punishing you. It was about telling the truth, because no one else would. You didn't ruin me. You freed me. And I'm going to make sure the life I build from this moment forward has nothing to do with the past you tried to drag me back into. I forgive you. But I don't forget. Nathan. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not to be mailed. Not to be burned. But to remain. A quiet marker of the boundary I had drawn. Months passed. Then a year. And the shop still stood. The friends still returned. I didn't see Earl or Lois again. I heard they moved out of state. Dorian disappeared from the public eye. But I never chased their shadows again. Because I no longer needed to prove I belonged to a family that couldn't see me. I had made a place of my own. And for the first time, I didn't fear being alone at the table. Because I knew one by one the right people would take their seats. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.